Good evening everyone, my name is Usagi.
I'm Zunda.
Tonight, I'll be sharing some true Japanese scary stories.
What kind of scary story is waiting for us this time?
Today, I'll be sharing a few scary stories, including one titled The Mud Dolls in the Cave.
Okie dokie.
The story The Mud Dolls in the Cave might traumatize those with a fear of dark places, so be warned.
Unlike our faint-hearted viewers, I'm confident that I won't be scared at all.
No, you'll be scared too.
Eep.
When I was living in my high school dormitory, there was something strange going on. I lived in an old wooden dormitory for boys because commuting from my home would take too much time. The dormitory was eerie. Sometimes, while walking through the hallways, I would hear strange noises. Even when I was studying late at night in my room, I would hear sounds, something heavy being dragged across the ceiling above me. One day, while my dorm mates were out practicing for the sports festival, I stayed behind because I wasn't feeling well. Then, I heard that sound again. Normally, I wouldn't pay much attention, but being alone in the big dormitory made me uneasy about the noise. Alright, I'm going to find out what's making that sound. I grabbed a flashlight, removed the ceiling panel in my closet, and climbed up into the attic. Crawling on my belly, I moved towards the source of the noise. But after a while, I hit a dead end, a crude board, nailed across my path, blocking me from going further. Strangely, the board was covered with paper amulets. Why would a board like this be here? I had no idea. But there was no way to go forward, so I reluctantly shone the flashlight through a gap in the board to see what was on the other side. The dusty attic floor had several long, ribbon-like tracks. They looked like something had been dragged across the floor. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly scrambled back to my room. After that, I heard the noise a few more times, but I never went back up into the attic again. I wonder what was in the attic?
Paper amulets, they're Japanese talismans, right?
Yes, they're used to ward off evil spirits. I wonder why they needed something like that in the attic.
It was probably just an animal. Sometimes houses in Japan have rats or civet cats living in them.
But how do you explain the nailed board and the paper amulets?
Let's just pretend we didn't see those.
That doesn't solve anything. Next, I'll tell you a story called, Mud Doll in the Cave.
That's the one you mentioned earlier.
I'll say it again, if you're afraid of the dark, you might want to skip this one.
Be careful. All you weak-hearted viewers with nyctophobia.
I was seriously into caving in my university club. The prefecture where my university is located has many caves. Nowadays, many of these caves are tourist spots, but back then, their interiors were still unknown, and we often conducted surveys with local government offices. This story takes place one winter, during a survey of a particularly large cave. The participants split into groups to enter the cave, and I was with some club members. We were supposed to be surveying the cave, but honestly, surveying is tedious, so we decided to just explore the cave for fun. We wandered around, taking pictures wherever we found interesting spots. After a while, one of the members seemed possessed by something and started crawling on his stomach into a narrow downward hole. The rest of us knew that this spot had already been surveyed and was a dead end, so we thought he would just get stuck and have to crawl back out backward. But minutes passed, and he didn't come back. We were starting to worry when he finally crawled back out, facing us. The others wondered how he had managed to turn around in such a tight space and called out to him. He began speaking, trembling. When I reached the end of the hole, I noticed that part of the wall was different, it was made of some kind of soil. When I dug into it with my hands, the wall crumbled easily, so I could move forward. I found a space about the size of a bathroom. Hearing this, we understood how he had managed to turn around and crawl out. He continued, still shaking. And when I shone my light into the space, there was a large mud doll lying there. We thought he had found a human-shaped stalactite and freaked out, but then he added. But for some reason, the mud doll was wearing glasses. Who would do something like that? Everyone immediately thought, that's not a mud doll, that's a corpse. The atmosphere in the cave grew heavy. We all exited the cave immediately that day and called the police. Later, we found out that the body was identified. According to the police, it was a local high school student who had gone missing years before. The cause of death was unclear due to the amount of time that had passed. It seemed he had entered the cave with just a flashlight, probably to explore or maybe with the intention of suicide. In the space where the body was found, they also found a mud-covered flashlight with dead batteries and a snack wrapper. The body's preservation was attributed to the poor air circulation in the cave and the fact that the space had been sealed off for so long, preventing decomposition. The mud from dripping water covered the entire body, except for the glasses, which remained uncovered for reasons unknown. What scared me the most was imagining the time this boy was alive inside that cave. If you've ever been inside a cave without any light, you probably know how truly dark it can be. In that kind of darkness, you can't even tell if your eyes are open or closed. Most people wouldn't be able to maintain their sense of balance for more than 10 minutes. In true darkness, you start seeing things that aren't there. And in the absolute silence of a cave, you can start hearing things that aren't there either. The boy probably lost his sanity about 30 minutes after his flashlight died. Without a light, it's impossible to navigate an uncharted cave. Reaching the exit under those conditions is almost impossible. He probably regretted entering the cave and thought over and over whether he had told anyone where he was going. He may have believed in being rescued and groped along the walls, desperately trying to find a way out. How many days did he survive? Did he see hallucinations of light in the darkness? Did he hear terrifying voices or the sounds of something walking around him all night? He might not have even known where he ended. Maybe he went mad, screamed into the darkness, and fled to that small space as if being chased. Exhausted, he could no longer move, unable to distinguish between life and death as he passed away. It's the most terrifying way to die I can imagine.
Now I think I've developed a fear of the dark. Sorry for making fun of you, dear viewers who fear the dark. Darkness is terrifying.
It's definitely a horrible way to die.
But why weren't the glasses covered in mud?
I don't know, but it makes it even creepier.
I'm too scared to even close my eyes now. I want to use Scotch tape to keep my eyelids open.
That's pretty serious. Next, I'll tell you a story called Inherited Item. It's a creepy story, but no ghosts this time.
This one doesn't involve a cave, right?
No caves this time, don't worry. This story happened when I traveled to Tokyo to take my university entrance exams. Since I didn't know anyone in Tokyo, I stayed alone at a hotel in the city. I was planning to stay for about 2 weeks to take exams at several schools. One day, after finishing an exam, I returned to the hotel, and the receptionist stopped me. "Are you Mr.?" "Yes, that's me. We have a package for you from another guest." "A package for me? From whom?" The person didn't give their name and left immediately after. "They just asked us to give this to you." I was confused because, aside from my parents back home, no one knew I was staying at this hotel. "Are you sure you've got the right person?" "Yes, you are Mr. Correct? There's no mistake. This package is definitely for you." I couldn't understand what was happening, but I took the B5-sized brown envelope that was supposedly addressed to me. When I returned to my room, I called my parents just to be sure. But of course, they knew nothing about it. I thought it must be a mistake, but the receptionist insisted it was for me. My last name is very rare, so it's unlikely they would confuse it with someone else. Reluctantly, I decided to open the envelope. Inside, I found a piece of notebook paper with a hand-drawn map on it, marked in marker. The map showed a route from the hotel where I was staying, leading to a location 3 train stations away. The path continued to a place marked with a cross, and beside it was written "Here." There was also a key in the envelope. It looked like a house key. At that point, I was completely at a loss. Fear started to creep in, so I put everything back in the envelope and returned it to the front desk. There was no way I was going to that place. Fortunately, I only had one more exam left. But the incident stuck with me, and I couldn't concentrate on the test at all. After finishing the exam, I had planned to stay a few more days to explore Tokyo, but I cancelled all of that and returned home immediately.
What would have happened if he had gone to that place?
He might not have been able to write this story if he had.
If it were me, I'd probably give in to curiosity and go.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Usagi, if I ever get into a dangerous situation, will you come save me?
That sounds like a job for the Avengers.
I wonder if Spider-Man would come to help.
Next, I'll tell a story about a hotel.
Oh. 2 in a row.
This one's scarier than the last.
Scary, but I'm excited.
I'm embarrassed to admit, but I'm the type who gets scared easily. Even at 25, I can't handle watching ghost shows on TV. This story happened when I had to travel for work. The night before my trip, I met up with a friend. During the conversation, I casually mentioned which hotel I'd be staying at, and my friend teased me. That hotel has a reputation for being haunted, so be careful. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. However, since my company had already booked the hotel, I couldn't change my plans. On the day of the trip, after finishing work, I checked into the hotel. My mind was overwhelmed with fear, all thanks to my friend's unnecessary comment. So I quickly crawled into bed, hoping to fall asleep fast. But once you start feeling scared, it's hard to sleep. I counted sheep, turned over in bed countless times, and tried everything to calm myself. Suddenly, I heard a loud, frantic knocking at the door. It was impossible to ignore. Terrified, I buried myself under the covers, trying to block out the sound by covering my ears. But the knocking only grew louder. There were also scratching sounds, like someone desperately clawing at the door. As scared as I was, I suddenly thought, maybe it's a hotel employee trying to alert me to an emergency. If that were the case, staying hidden under the blanket wouldn't help. Summoning all my courage, I got out of bed, keeping my distance from the door, and yelled, "Is something wrong?" The knocking immediately stopped, as if it had never been there. If it had been a hotel worker, they should have responded. But there was only silence. Too afraid to open the door, I tried to crawl back into bed. And then, this time, the knocking was even louder. I panicked. I wanted to call the front desk, but what if the line didn't connect? Or worse, what if a ghost answered? These thoughts made my hand freeze over the phone. I curled up in my blanket, praying the door was locked, and despite not being religious, I prayed for help from any god or Buddha. The knocking turned into the sound of the doorknob being twisted violently. I prayed for morning to come soon. After what felt like an eternity, the sounds finally stopped. Of course, I didn't sleep a wink the rest of the night. The next morning, I rushed to check out and headed home. After some time, I met the friend who had planted that unwanted knowledge in me. Thanks to you, I had a horrible experience at that hotel. Of course, I knew this was just me venting. Still, after such a frightening experience, I hoped he would understand my frustration. My friend, realizing this, didn't seem to take it to heart. He smiled and said, "I didn't tell you this before, but that hotel had a big earthquake and fire years ago. The hotel had since been rebuilt, but during that time, the situation was horrific. The earthquake caused a fire to break out in the kitchen, and the flames spread quickly throughout the hotel. Due to the earthquake, the doors of many rooms became warped and wouldn't open, trapping several people inside as they burned to death." Upon hearing this, I thought, so the sound I heard must have been those people, desperately banging on the doors, trying to escape the fire. Even after death, their spirits must have continued seeking help in that hotel. I told my friend. So it really was a ghost. I'm glad I didn't open the door. There's no way I'd want to invite a ghost into my room. But my friend gave me a puzzled look and said, "Why do you think that? If they were trying to escape, they would have been inside your room."
That last line gave me chills. So the ghost wasn't outside, it was inside the room the whole time.
That's right. It's one of those slow burn types of horror.
That means the ghost was right beside him when he was trembling under the covers.
That's exactly it.
I'm never staying in a hotel again. Time to hide at home for a while.
Are you sure your home isn't built on an old accident or crime scene?
Stop. I won't have anywhere safe left to go.
Alright, let's call it a day. Zunda, what did you think of the stories this time?
There were a lot of spine-chilling stories this time. Thanks for giving me both nyctophobia and a fear of hotels.
You're welcome. Could you share your thoughts on the stories we covered today?
The story about finding the mud doll in the cave was really scary. It's a different kind of fear than dealing with ghosts.
Yes, that story becomes scarier the more you imagine the situation.
Also, the one about the mysterious envelope was intriguing. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if the person had gone to that location.
Who knows what was waiting there?
I want to hear more of them.
Sure? I'll call you again when I have more scary stories to tell. Subscribe to the channel. That way, we can meet again in the next video.
See you later, alligator.